I feel like this is the second time I've done a duet up here. But I don't know if this is going to become a pattern. I guess Pastor John will decide that.
She's much prettier than me.
Thank you.
I totally agree. So as many of you know, Evangeline and I are heading to the Philippines for long-term missions. I shared this about like a year ago. What some of you may or may not know is why we're going or what we will be doing. And so today we would like to share, like to update you on the why and the what, and to invite people to partner with us, but hopefully encourage you as well and learn a little bit more about like what's going on around the world. So just as a brief reminder, some of you might remember this, but at the beginning of last year, I think 2015, our plans were to be here in New York. She was in the Philippines, serving at Faith Academy. I was here at CEM, and the plan was for us to get married here and to be here for the long term. But a couple of things kind of, changed our direction. First of all, at the school, Faith Academy, they had a really high staff turnover rate for this year. So much so that they were asking people everywhere to like pray that God would send more people. So first of all, we prayed, God, send more staff to Faith Academy. And then we were a little concerned, like, okay, God, are we holding our plans too tightly? Because, none of us want to go against God's will. And so we thought, okay, just to cover our bases and cover our butts, let's pray, God, if you want to send us, you can. But we really didn't think that would be what God would do. It was just more like, let's cover our bases. And then, as I shared last year, God really made it clear to us through a vision to me that we were to go to the Philippines for long term. And once again, I could share more about that in detail if you're interested. But I don't think we have the time for that today. But basically, that's where God led and how God led.
Yeah, and kind of as Dennis had, as he had mentioned, he was serving here. That's him having a shaving cream battle with young seekers this past August at the getaway at Pastor Lee's place. That's me with my 5th grade class from last year. And so it was just really, as a couple, knowing that God was merging our lives together through marriage, something that we're really excited about. And, for this season of life, we've been here in New York with you. We continue to really enjoy that and value that time. But this morning we'll be just sharing with you of how specifically God has directed us, how you guys can be praying for us, and you can just learn more about our ministry that we'll be moving towards in the future.
So the organization that Evangeline went to the Philippines before was called Teach Beyond, and their mission is to place Christian teachers at school, missionary schools around the world. But I'm not a teacher, except the Sunday school teacher, whom the kids love, maybe. Anyway, so we couldn't quite go with the same organization. And so we talked to a couple of our friends in the field and just gathered some information, and we decided this organization called One Challenge, or OC, was one of our best fits, and for a couple of reasons. One, they have a long history in the Philippines, and so any questions we might have, like what do we do for visas, or what's the rules on this in the Philippines, and how do you do taxes over there? Those are questions that they know already. It's kind of like going to an established company as opposed to a startup. There's a lot of excitement in the startup, but then with the established company, you know what you're getting, and there's a lot of wisdom, experience there. So they're established in the Philippines, and that's one of the reasons.
And One Challenge's main focus is in church planting and really building up the body of believers in the local area. So the Philippines, it's predominantly a Catholic nation. I'd say the majority of the people there are Catholic, but it's not like Roman Catholicism here in the United States. It's very mixed in with a lot of rituals, a lot of animism, a lot of idolatry and superstitions.
Tribalism.
Yeah, a lot of tribalism, or believing in local Filipino religions. And so in a lot of ways, it's been exciting actually in the Philippines, because Philippines has freedom of religion. We're right by China, we're right by Indonesia, we're right by Vietnam, these communist countries. And in fact, God has really been at work within the Philippines among Filipino believers. And so now it's really exciting that the Philippines has started becoming a sending nation. And so in that way, Philippines is really strategic in Asia to be able to reach other nations in Asia. And looking at One Challenge's values of partnering with local churches, equipping local leaders, Dennis and I, when we were looking to see what God could do through us, or what we would want to be a part of, those values just matched up very, very well. Another thing that I noticed in my 2 years there, I had some friends who served with One Challenge, and I noticed that their member care was phenomenal. And what I mean by member care is that when you're a missionary on the field, you're going through a lot of different changes. Like, you move far away from home. It's super hot in the Philippines, like always 85 degrees. I was killing mosquitoes all the time. I put a cup of water out, and like within 10 minutes, like ants will be drinking my water. And I'll, in the beginning, I throw out the whole cup of water. And towards the end of my 2 years, I'm like, yeah, just tilt it and like still drink the water, because you don't want to waste it. But deeper heart things, like how are you transitioning with team conflict, or some of my students were just going through some really hard things, and I was processing through with them, but I needed someone to process through with. And so because of their excellence in member care, as well as their long respect or long-term presence in the Philippines, that was something that Dennis and I really were excited to pursue. And so this is us back in November. We interviewed in Colorado Springs for an entire week, did psychological assessments, and everything like that. But we accepted our formal acceptance by the organization in November, and by the Philippines team in January. So we're excited to share with you some of who or what is Faith Academy, the school that we're going to, who attends that school, and what's the purpose of the school.
So we will be going with the Mission One Challenge. We're going to Faith Academy and serving there. Evangeline will be going as a 5th grade teacher, and I will be going as a high school chaplain. High school chaplain is just like almost like a youth pastor. We have about 200 kids in high school.
200 high school students.
Yeah, so it's basically, I think we have a weekly chapel, so just think of like a regular Sunday service, but on like a Tuesday morning, kind of a thing. Think of like the preaching we have up here. We have speakers and music, so it's very similar. And so that's the main thing that we'll be doing at Faith Academy. And the reason why we're going is that there's just a lot of needs. We normally don't think of missionary kids. Well, one, we don't normally think about missionary kids. And two, we don't realize like the needs that are there.
I'm going to share about what the school is. So Faith Academy, I'm actually in that picture, the left side, like second or third row. Yeah, right there, smiling. I'm the Asian one. No, there's lots of Asians there. But yes, this is a real picture. Our high school seniors really are standing on our roof. Like, no way you could do that in the States because of safety laws. But
or lawsuits.
Yeah, so this school is in Manila. So Manila is the capital of the Philippines. Philippines is made up of thousands of islands. It's a tropical country, but it's incredibly dense. And so Metro Manila, like think about New York and the 5 boroughs, Metro Manila has 27 million people packed. And so wherever you look, there's people there. There's advertisements. If you've ever been to Thailand or India, like it's very similar to that. So kind of get that into your picture. It's not like Hong Kong or even Taipei, but it's a tropical country. And so the school is located in a little oasis. It's between two of the busiest roads in the city. But we got this plot of land about 70 years ago that God provided. And so our campus is very green. There's coconut trees. In fact, we need to cut down some of the coconuts. We have to have the groundskeeper cut them down on Saturdays so they don't like fall and hurt kids. But it's a K through 12 school. So we even have a preschool program for 4-year-olds. And most of the students who attend this school, 85% of them, their parents are in the Philippines serving the Lord as missionaries. So that means that they have moved from their home countries of South Africa, England, Canada, US, many from South Korea, for the purpose of serving there. And so their parents are Bible translators. Their parents are in medical missions. They do sports ministries. Basketball is huge in the Philippines, and so there's a lot of sports outreach through that. There's also a lot of seminaries there, and so the seminaries are taught in English, so we have a lot of seminary professors that come, and so we have this school as a place for their children. And so Dennis was speaking about the need, and I'll let you continue with that.
You know, like when you have kids, I mean, there's a lot of things that you take into consideration, but one of them is your child's education, right? You think about what school districts are good for your kids, where should we live, you know, so our kids can go get a good education. That's no different from like the missionary families on the field. And if you raise a family in the Philippines or just anywhere, there's a couple options. First, what you can do is homeschool. And it's a little easier when the kids are young, but homeschooling gets really difficult as they get into like middle school and high school. Another option that they could do is they can go to the local Filipino school. And the education standards there are actually pretty decent, but it's not quite a good fit, or it doesn't quite prepare the students for when they want to go to university and college back in their home culture, like the United States or Canada or Australia or South Korea. And so it doesn't quite prepare them for what they need post-high school. They could also go to an international school. And in Manila, there's 2 international schools. There's a British school and an international school in Manila.
Which is an American school.
Which is an American school.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic schools. The only thing is, these schools, the tuition is $12,000 a month. Or a year, per kid. Yeah. And so, missionary families, we're not exactly like raking in the money. And so it's really cost prohibitive and tough for a family to find decent education for their kids in the Philippines. And so that's where Faith Academy comes into play. All the staff members, even us, raise support. Find people who say, you know, we want to be part of your vision, be a part of your ministry, and support you, so that the school doesn't have to pay us, and then it can pass those savings on to the students and the families. So without Faith Academy, a lot of families might not even be in the area. Think of all the things that they do, like birthing clinics, Bible translations, and so forth. It'll be very difficult for families to be there without the school there.
So Dennis touched upon it a little bit. Our families still pay a school tuition, but it's around $2,000. It's less in elementary school, increases with middle school, and high school is the most expensive because there's most programs. But all of that way, all of the money that goes into the school can go straight into campus upkeep, curriculum, as well as we have a lot of Filipino staff that work as our secretaries or groundskeepers or our bus drivers. And so that way, it's just one way that the school stays sustainable. Another huge area of need is that many missionary kids are what we call TCKs, and so they're called third culture kids. And so what that means, who a third culture kid is that for me, I thought I was like, oh, I get this. Like I'm Chinese American. Like my mom and dad are in Hong Kong. I was born in Canada but raised in the U.S. Like I kind of understand that. But think about one more level beyond that. So for example, some of my students, I'll take Heidi for example. She was born in Germany. Her parents were born in Germany. She was born in the Philippines. But the school she attends is English speaking, so it's mostly Western. At home, they speak German. And so it's 3 different cultures that she's encountering on a daily basis. This is the same with my South Korean students. This is the same with my students who are Indonesian, and even for my Filipino students coming in, because a lot of local pastors, local Filipino pastors, have chosen to enroll their kids at Faith Academy because there's a depth of Christian education. There's discipleship there. So some of them have even said, instead of the local schools or the Christians, we want them to have this international education. But even for the Filipino students, as soon as they come on our campus, it's culture shock for them. Yeah. And so what is it unique about a TCK? I think for one thing, growing up as youth, like everybody goes through identity issues, like who am I? Where do I belong? What am I good at? Do people really love me for me? And that takes a whole other level when there's constant transitions. I know of one missionary family where in their first 6 years in the Philippines, they lived in 6 different houses. In the Philippines, there's also rainy season, and so sometimes those houses flood. Sometimes cars break down. My closest friends my first year weren't there my second year. My closest friends from my second year, I'm no longer there. And so there's constant turnover. And what I've found with my students, and these are 3 girls that were in my class last year. This is Deborah. She was born in the Philippines. Her parents are Korean, but Deborah barely speaks any Korean. Heidi is the one that I was talking about. Her mom and dad are from Germany. They're missionaries with OMF. Her mom is fluent in Mandarin, but Heidi was born and raised in the Philippines. And Kylie over here, her parents run a guest home for New Tribes Missions. She was born in the U.S., but moved to the Philippines when she was in 2nd grade. And so all of this kind of confusion, they really need to know that their identity is in Christ. Their identity is not in a passport country. It takes a lot of time to build trust with these kids. I remember my first day of teaching, my first year there, I was doing my introduction, hi, I'm Miss Tam, I'm from here, blah, blah, blah. Child raises her hand. I was thinking, yes, yes, they're so engaged, they think I'm interesting, they like me. But her question was, how long are you going to be teaching here? And when I heard that, it just crushed me because their 4th grade teacher had just gone back to the U.S. Their 3rd grade teacher had gone back to the U.S. Their 1st grade teacher was gone. Their kindergarten teacher was gone. So only their 2nd grade teacher within their elementary career, 5th grade, was there. And so I said to her, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be here for 2 years and for as long as God calls me to be here. And there was a visible sigh of relief, oh, good, because it's that question of, if I open up my heart to you, if I love you, if I spend time with you, are you going to leave me like everybody else has left me before? Yeah. And so there's a high need of having people who are there for the long run with these kids.
Yeah, because they deal with issues of transition. They don't know if they're teacher's going to be there next year. A lot of families are on the move. Some families come back for furlough, so they don't know if their best friend and their family will be there the next year. There's just a lot of transitions, and just a lot of issues of loneliness. I think something that we came up where found out about is when people deal with issues of identity. The more they struggle with it, there's always issues of depression or anxiety. I think for us, a lot of us are not 3rd culture kids, but we're we 2nd culture kids. Our parents are of one culture. We grew up in the United States, so we're more Western. And growing up is is it okay to be Chinese? And I know who I am, but I don't know if that's the kind of person I want to be in school or vice versa. And it took some time for us to get used to it and become who we are. But if you can't figure it out, it becomes lonely and it can be depressing. So these students that people don't normally think about, they really need someone that can be in their lives. And I think the image that I use is that of a signpost. We have no illusions of changing the world because we're so great. No, we're just normal people. And so my image is always that of a signpost and being there and saying, look, I know you're going through a tough time. Your best friend just moved away to another country or you don't know who you are, but this is who you are. This is your identity in Christ. or this is the way to go, or this is what I experienced as a kid. This is what things will be like, or things will get better, to point them in the right direction. And something that she touched upon is, if these kids are struggling to transition and people leave them all the time, one of the things that we hope to do is to plant roots there to provide some stability. And so we talked about being there at least 5 years, if not more. We try to keep our plans with open hands, and it's just like, okay, God, we'll be there for at least 5 years. We're going to dedicate that time there. And if you want us to stay longer, 10, 15 years, like, we'll love to serve there and be there. But if not, if you call us elsewhere, that we'll be happy to. So we want to plant roots there and try to be a stable foundation with these kids.
Yeah. And lastly, I'll just share a third need that's there that I was made aware of actually this time last year, February. On a staff of 100, so we have over 100 teachers there from different countries. I was one of two Asian Americans. My friend Leo, he's Filipino American. He's born and raised in California, has been serving in the Philippines. But I was the only Chinese staff member. And so I was sitting in a staff meeting, and our superintendent was there. So everybody from every division, so high school, middle school, elementary, including preschool, was there. And he began to share how a tour group had come through earlier that week. And we have a lot of tour groups that kind of come through. They're curious, short-term missionaries. They say, oh, where do your kids go to school? We've heard about this school, Faith Academy. If you hear of missionary schools, like this is one of the huge ones, like probably the most well-known one in Asia. And so people are just curious. But this tour group was really different. It was actually a group of Chinese underground church pastors. And they had left China to get some extra training in the Philippines. And even though they were there for their own personal and spiritual growth, as well as the growth of their church, one of the biggest things that they were praying for and asking for God to provide was an alternative school for their children, because earlier that year, the communist officials had invited them to their children's school. And in this meeting, the official said, "We've been watching you. We know exactly who you are. We know what you're doing. And we want you to know that as long as your children are in our schools, we will be actively crushing out your ideology from them." And these aren't empty threats, because they're living in a region of China where, if you're familiar with the news and just politics there's been a new president there for the past 2 years. There's been a rise of persecution. It's been off of the media, but there's been there's been crosses burned in public. And so these are very real needs. And at Faith Academy, we had one student, his name is Joseph, and he is Joseph. He came to us when he was 16, and at the age of 16, he had already seen his dad beaten and put in prison, and they came to the Philippines as religious refugees. And so it was like a real thing for those of us as staff. Like, we had been working with Joseph all year long, and for me, in that staff meeting, I felt like God was saying, like, Evangeline, you know that this could be you. I don't know if many of you know this, but my dad's a pastor. My dad's a pastor of a Chinese church, and so growing up in 3 congregations, Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese is very familiar to me. My mom and dad live in Toronto, but I think to myself, like, you know what? If my dad was doing what God has called him to do, but we were in China, like, that could be me. In fact, that could be Dennis, because his family is in ministry. And so God really began to challenge me and saying, like, what will you do as the one Chinese person in the school right now? Like, are you willing? And I was like, no, like, God, my Mandarin's not good enough. Come on, like, my Cantonese is okay, but Mandarin, really? And I kept on praying, like, could you send somebody who's like maybe 10 years older than me to really lead the way, and I'll be the one who's able to come and help? And God really challenged me a lot. And he said, when I called Moses, who did he have? He had me. Of course, like, Aaron came along, but God basically challenged me and said, if I'm the one who's leading you to this, who are you to say that you want somebody else to look to look up to or to follow in their footsteps. And so this was last February. And a week earlier, Dennis had told me, when we were, long distance dating, Skype dates, he had shared with me, Evangeline, I really think that God is leading us back to the Philippines. And the timing of it, 1 week, that night when I Skyped with him after the Skype meeting, I said, Dennis, maybe God is sending us back to the Philippines so that we can be a bridge between the Chinese community and the non-Chinese community, and so that we can really love and support these kids who are very lost, traumatized, being sent to another country for safety, that kind of thing. So that's an area that you could be praying for us for, because when we return, we're still the only 2 Chinese staff members, and we're really hoping for God to provide more.
Yeah, so those pastors are looking to send their kids to Faith Academy as students, and so that program, I think they're gonna have an English camp in the summertime to gauge what the English level is of these students, and then starting in 2017-18, they'll have a middle school program specifically dedicated toward working with those Chinese students. Is that right, 2017-18? And they've asked Evangeline to lead that. So that's something to consider for us. But the other thing, when you're talking about like us being the only Asian Americans and maybe God sending us back, I think it's actually really important to have more Asian Americans at the school. Because, just the way culture works, we relate best to people who look like us or who have the same background. And people who have multiple backgrounds, Chinese American, Asian Americans, we can stand in that gap between 2 cultures. So for example, last year, Evangeline had a parent-teacher conference with a Korean father. And they did the whole academic thing. How's your kid doing? Doing great. He's succeeding, failing, I don't know. Afterwards, at the end, the father talks to her and says, I have a little concern. My son's doing good academically, but I feel like he's being more disrespectful to me. Now I feel like I know he's being a little more disrespectful. And Evangeline's like, oh, okay, well, like, what do you mean by disrespectful? And she was able to say it in a really non-condemning way, just to draw a little more out of him.
Tell me more about that,
Oh yeah, tell me more about that. And he said, Samuel has been a little more lax. He's been looking me directly in the eye when he talks to me. And in Korean culture, you're not supposed to look at someone, or at least an elder, directly in the eyes. And I think, so she was able to explain, okay, we're not like, okay, this is how it is, but able to explain a little more, like, your son is in the middle of multiple cultures. Like, your family is Korean. The school is Western. And he's learning from different cultures. It's not that he's being disrespectful, but he's just learning from different cultures. So at school, and in the West, we teach each other, or we tell people, if you want to show respect, you give a firm handshake and you look the person in the eye, right? If you're looking elsewhere, then that shows that you don't care or your mind's not in it. And so she was able to kind of speak truth to the Korean father. And I think it helps, too, that she's Asian as well, and was able to kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, I have a really great relationship with the Korean families on campus, as well as the Filipino families. One example is that a lot of times in Asian culture, when you come to visit someone or to show someone respect, you give them a gift, right? Like fruit. You bring oranges, you bring food.
You go to someone's house for lunch.
And so whenever we as teachers have parent-teacher conferences, in the teacher's lounge afterwards, we're all chatting, and one of my coworkers mentioned, she's like, I think my Korean parents are bribing me. And I was like, what? Like, tell me. And she's like, well, they brought me sandwiches. And I was like, I got an umbrella. And but then I had to share, I was like, they're not bribing you. It's really showing appreciation. And so I was like, oh, it's just Korean culture. Until my second year. My mom and dad came to visit me in the Philippines for Christmas. When my mom opened up her suitcase, she's like, this is a tie for your principal. This is a scarf for your mentor teacher. These are chocolates for the family that you're living with. And then I thought, oh, wow, it's really just our culture's way of saying, like, we're welcoming you. We appreciate what you do. But even in that moment, I was able to share with my friend's American, but I was able to say, like, they're not bribing you. It's really showing that they care and appreciate you. And so I found a lot of ways to build a lot of friendships, even with my Filipino friends there. And so I think that there's a lot of value, and one of my long-term prayer requests is that I would see more people from the Hispanic community, African American community, Asian community, Asian American community from the U.S. being sent out as missionaries, because I think it's kind of like having a song but only one instrument playing. Like, it's much more beautiful when you have lots of different instruments to have this orchestra sound. And so that way, that's kind of some of my dreams for the future. But I just wanted to take the time to, go back one. So just vision and strategy, Dennis mentioned it before. I'll be going back to teach 5th grade for our first year back, but then after that, transitioning to middle school to really work with those students. And those are just kind of our families of how God has set up our own personal stories and helping us to be able to understand what it's like living in multiple cultures, as well as growing up in families that serve the Lord full time. So,
real quick question. Which one am I? Am I this one over here on the left? This one up top with the goofy glasses? Or this one with the rosy cheeks and the turtleneck sweater? Left, middle, right. Who votes left? Who votes, this is left. Who votes middle? Who votes right? Who doesn't know or care? I'm the one on the left.
Yeah.
I'm the cute one.
No, Dennis has a little sister too, but she wasn't born yet. Carissa was born when you were 8.
I was 8.
Yeah. And so I'm the only girl in my family. That's very easy, I hope. But my brothers will actually be here next Sunday, so you'll be able to meet them and say hello to them. Okay. So I just want to introduce you to one of my students. Her name is Seyang. She's on the left. That's me in the middle. That's my mom when she came to visit me in the Philippines. And so Philippines has Starbucks. We were getting coffee after church. It's a treat. I go into Manila for church every Sunday, and to be able to go grocery shopping. I live in a more rural part, but a little bit about Seyang was that she was in my 5th grade class the first year I was there. So this is 2013, 2014. So 2 years ago. 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, she was in my 5th grade class. And as a teacher, you know, many of you guys are teachers in here, and you begin to talk and you say, oh, my kids. And so a lot of times strangers are like, oh, how many kids do you have? And I'm like, I have 26. Really, because you spend so much time with them. And those of you who are parents, I hope you do know that your kids are well loved by their teachers also. And so you begin to pick up things and you notice things. And so Seyang, as my student, she's extremely likable by lots of friends. Like all the girls are always surrounding her because Seyang has like really cool erasers and pens and everything. But not only that, but she's very giving and very joyful. In fact, she's known for singing all the time, just kind of humming, and she loves music. But one of the things that I noticed about her was that some days she would be like, come into school really, really late, or when the vans are supposed to pick up the kids, like she'd be there kind of late. And I first noticed around parent-teacher conference when her parents didn't come. And so I thought, like, this is very uncharacteristic of Asian parents, like to not be involved in school when they're always there, like very, very involved. And so I began to ask around, and I asked a school librarian who's known Seyang ever since she was in kindergarten. And so she shared, she's like, actually, her father has a terminal illness, but her mom and dad have decided not to tell Seyang and her 2 brothers who are in high school because they're afraid that it will affect their grades. Getting into school in Korea is highly, highly competitive. Our kids go to school at Faith Academy, they speak English, and then they have to take Korean entrance exams in Korean, and so it's highly competitive. And so for better or for worse, lots of families that I know have made decisions like that to protect their kids. But of course, Se-young knew that something was going on. She knew that her dad was going to Korea often, getting chemo treatments, and would be coming back looking very tired. And so all she knew was that her father was sick. I, as an adult in her life, realized, had been told by her mom, that her father was actually dying of cancer, so was in the dying stages. And so Se-young would just come to me and cry. Sometimes during Marianda, which is recess time, we'd just sit and talk, and I would just she was extremely confused, very angry with God. And so some missionaries have this idea. There's a missionary out there. His name was David Livingston. He went to Africa, and when he died, he had his heart buried in Africa, but his body taken back. And so there's a lot of those, and there is sometimes this super idea of, if I'm a missionary and I die on the field, then there's more you really show dedication to the Lord. And so Se-young's dad had been a church planner on an island down south called Mindoro for over 20 years. And so instead of receiving hospice care and dying in front of his children, one morning Se-young came into school crying just uncontrollably, and I had to take her away from my kids. I had the teacher next door watch my class and just talk to her, and I said, "What is going on, Se-young?" And she said, my dad left this morning, and I didn't get to say goodbye." And so his plan was that he went to Mindoro early that morning, a 3-hour boat ride at 4 a.m., and according to Se-young, he was going to live in a bamboo hut and die there. And so she was wrecked. She did not get to say goodbye to him. And so, eventually that situation, the school got involved. He actually, their supporting churches in Korea didn't even realize that he was that sick, but they flew him back to Korea, and so he received hospice care there. Se-young was able to spend some time with her dad, but he died that summer. So he died in August during the first week of school. And so at this time, she's in 6th grade. I'm still her 5th grade teacher. She's just moved to middle school. And I just knew that she was going through so much. And so I really asked God to give me wisdom, saying, how can I love this child who's hurting so much? Very angry at God. She felt very guilty, just child psychology. When things like this happen, she blamed herself. She said, maybe I didn't pray hard enough, maybe I wasn't good enough, things that are just, it's a child's way of dealing with grief. And so for the whole first half of last year, I met with her, just having lunch with her, spending time with her. Sometimes we'd talk about her dad, sometimes we wouldn't. And, as a teacher, even though I'm not there this year, I still think about her all the time and, pray for her as well as my other kids. And one of the things that, the blessings of Facebook is that every year our middle school has a Christmas concert. And so somebody had posted a video of the Christmas concert. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to watch this YouTube video. And in the Christmas concert, there's the beginning guitar class. So now it's the 7th graders. And as I was listening to it, I recognized the voice of the vocalist. And as soon as I heard the voice of the vocalist, of the girl singing, I started crying. Because my nickname for Se-young is Songbird. And one of my prayers for her when she was my student was that, all of the challenging things in life, that it wouldn't make her angry and frustrated towards God. But the song that she's singing is actually one of my personal favorites. It's called My Lighthouse by the Wren Collective. And so it speaks about how God continues to guide us through difficult times.
So we're going to show a quick clip of it.
The video is not working, but the audio is. That's all right. So you guys also got to hear her beautiful voice. She's only in 7th grade. Now she's taller than me, but
Should we get her signature?
No. As I was thinking about what to share with you last night, the story was what God brought to mind, because I really want to show you that God has really been at work in healing Se-young. Like, does she still miss her dad? Are those feelings so raw to her? Yes. But is she able to still praise God and sing through her pain? Yes. And I think as Christians, what I've learned from my students and what I'm learning in my life now is that pain and praising God are not, they're not exclusive. Like, you can have both at the same time, and they can be in conjunction. And I see a lot of that as I work with my students, that God continues to give me wisdom to know how to work with them through difficult circumstances and to be able to praise Him in the difficulty. And it was my privilege to be a part of Se-young's story. I'm excited to see her again and my other students who are now in 7th grade and 6th grade when we return next year. But I share that with you as an encouragement today for some of you who are going through hard times, to know that you can continue to trust the Lord.
Yeah. And I think it gives a small snapshot of what do missionary kids go through. They go through a lot. And they need people who can be there and to point them in the right direction, to speak words of truth into their lives. The families need people who can minister to the kids. Se-young was just one of 49 kids that you had?
26 kids the first year, and then 23 last year. Yeah.
That she invested in. And so, like, I think about all the things that the parents of those kids did. Birthing clinics, feeding programs, orphanages. They worked with the poor. They did Bible translation, seminaries, training church leaders. There's just so many things that they do. And by being their teacher and working with them academically, by being their chaplain and working with them spiritually, we get to support those ministries, and we get to be a part of it. We might not know how to do it, or we may not be able to do those kinds of things. But by being a teacher, by being a chaplain, we can support them in those works.
Yeah, and I want you to know that CM, you guys were a part of that too. Because both of my years when I was in the Philippines, I was the recipient of Jennifer and Susan's Memorial Scholarship. So my first year and my second year. So you guys are already a part of that, and I thank you for that.
So one of the things that, in order for us to go, our organization requires us to raise 100% of our monthly needs. And so the reason why they require 100% is, one of the reasons why
the PowerPoint isn't showing correctly.
Why they require 100% is because of a member care thing. They don't want their missionaries to go to the field and then suddenly worry about, we don't have enough money, or have to fundraise while you're overseas. Have to, make phone calls or try to talk to people while you're also trying to do ministry. It's very difficult. And so they require us to raise our monthly need of $6,000. So if the timeline of when we're going is we're stepping down from CEM mid-May. Beginning all of June, we're required to go to Colorado for training with the mission agency before we can go to the field. And then we need to be in the field by July, because training at Faith Academy, the June trainings with OC, the training with Faith Academy for new staff is in the middle of July, and then the kids come almost the week after.
Yeah.
So the organization requires us to raise our monthly need by, I think, June, $6,000. And so we're actually really thankful. We started fundraising 4 weeks ago, and already we're at 30-some% of our monthly need. And so we're very thankful for that. In fact, we talked to the board, and CEM as a whole, the church, is supporting us like many of our other missionaries, and we're very thankful for that.
I can give the breakdown. So one of the big questions is where does this money go? Sorry, I think in the transfer of our PowerPoint, this got kind of messed up, but I'll read it to you since the font is also white. So that big chunk of light blue, salary and payroll taxes, that's 52%. And so from the $6,000, think about 3,000 of it will go towards us. And so that we'll put that towards rent, monthly expense, food, electricity, internet, cell phone, all the stuff that you need for day-to-day living. 23% of that monthly breakdown goes towards benefits. So that's health insurance, vision, dental, retirement, putting away for retirement, as well as life insurance, among some other things. Later on, there's also there's a 12% headquarter assessment fee. So if you guys support staff members with InterVarsity or Campus Crusade, or even my organization that I still work full-time for, Teach Beyond, there's a 12% overhead cost. And so that goes towards administration, processing through donations. One thing that One Challenge does that's awesome is that we write newsletters and then they mail them for us, which is a big deal, because when I mailed things from the Philippines, like half the time it wouldn't get to the U.S. or it'd be very expensive. So that's just a huge blessing. And then lastly, we have 9% of ministry expenses, which is like classroom supplies for me, like whiteboard markers, Dennis taking out his discipleship group to get coffee and treating them to coffee or something. And then 4% of it is furlough expenses. So our mission, furlough is a time for missionaries to come back and reconnect with people that support them here. Oftentimes it's a time of rest, but oftentimes it's very stressful because it's very, very busy. And so as soon as they come back, they usually do trainings with their missions agency. But our group's furlough policy is that for every 1 full year that you serve in the Philippines, then you get 3 months of furlough. And so most families do 2 years on the field, 6 months back home. Dennis and I, right now, our trajectory is that we'll do 4 years straight and then do 1 year back. So that's the furlough policy. But if you guys have questions about that, you can ask us. We've got like an itemized list that's a very detailed breakdown. But once again, we really praise God for the ways in which He has been providing for us. One of our prayer requests has been, we've been looking for a house or a place to stay there, looking for a car to buy, and God has already given us leads with that. Oh, you're skipping a prayer request. Okay.
Well, you're just talking about prayer requests.
Yeah.
So when talking about partnerships, it's not only the financial aspect, but it's also the prayer aspect. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things that have been on our minds and needs. First, obviously, a new assistant pastor. I think my heart is really, I would love to ideally to have a pastor come in to take my place so that we could seamlessly pass things on, or have someone who can work with the youth. So please continue to pray for them. Pray for the pastoral search committee as we discern are these candidates the right fit or not. So just pray for us on that. You also pray for the transition to the Philippines. It's a pretty quick timeline. We stepped down, our last Sunday here is May 15th. We have 2 weeks to move home move stuff to my parents' house in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then we fly to Colorado for training for a month. And then we have to pack everything up to go to the Philippines in a week or two. And then you get to the Philippines, okay, you have a new place to live in. It's a lot to transition.
And then school starts.
And that's just the logistic part. Not even talking about, getting to a pattern of life or, routine, that kind of stuff. So just pray for transitions. Evangeline talked about a used car. You need a car to get around, at least for our area of town. It's needed. So just pray for that. And we're very thankful that we have, once again, OC missionaries on the field that we can actually communicate with and say, like, hey, we heard about this car that's being sold. Could you check it out for us? And so they can say, okay, this is a good car, this is not a good car. So we appreciate that. You can pray for new ministry partners. Evangeline has had a lot of people support her previously, but we don't know if they'll all support us again. And plus, we are raising more than what she raised last time. So we're just talking to a lot of people. We just pray for that. And then also maximize time with friends and family. Our time is dwindling, both in terms of like our time here, but just like how much time we have. And it's a little hard to prioritize. We want to spend time with people, but we also need to rest. And just a lot of things to figure out as the time gets shorter. So just pray for that.
Yeah, so these are things that you can be praying for us. And I know Dennis shared about this as our first prayer item, but my school in the Philippines has been praying for this church to be able to find another pastor that I think that weighs the heaviest on our hearts. Dennis loves working with young seekers, and we've got a high school, in the high school Sunday school group, and we've got a Bible study of kids that meets at our apartment once a week. And I think it's just these relationships where you invest in, especially for Dennis, that you want to be able to just know that they're in good hands. And so we continue to ask and pray boldly that God would provide the perfect person to step in and even bring more things, more life, new visions and new ideas and more partnership in ways that have gone even beyond what Dennis has done. So we're trusting God for that.
One more thing. And we try to share this with everyone that we talk to. We are, because of how God has led us to the Philippines, we're pretty confident in that God will provide for us. And so when we share with people, we don't want to tell people, look, we've been friends for a long time. If you want to continue to be friends, you better support us. That's definitely not the attitude that we want to have. And so it's always inviting people, like, this is where God's leading. This is the need in the field. This is how God's calling us to fulfill that need. And if you want to partner with us, we want to invite you to be a partner. And that's how we want to put that out to you. I don't want you to feel like, oh, this is our pastor, we have to support him. No, like, if God's tugging on your heart for this too, and you feel like, I want to be a part of that, we would love to have you join us, but we don't want you to think, okay, we didn't support him, now we're not going to have that relationship. That's furthest thing from our minds. For those who do feel like, yeah, this is something that we want to partner with, a couple things. I think on average, people who have been partnering with us have been partnering about $100 more or less, mainly what's significant to them. For example, we've had some ministry friends of ours, and they're like, oh, we would love to support you more, but we can only support like $30 a month. And we told them, look, we just are very thankful for whatever you can support us and just having that relationship. So whatever is on your heart to support us, we're just thankful. Another thing that people always ask us is, okay, so what's the best way to support you? Can we just give you a check? Well, the best way to support us is monthly, because that's the biggest need that we have. And if that's something that is on your heart too, they have a pamphlet that they gave us that explains 2 ways to give. One, you can give credit card, of course. That's very prevalent in our time. The one thing with credit card is that the transaction fee is taken from the donations. That's something to keep in mind. Another thing you can do is give through bank transfer. And so all you have to do is take your check, void it, and send it in with your information, with our information, to the organization, and they'll automatically take whatever you ask to donate monthly. So something to consider. If this is something that you want more information about, we've had this all in the back table by Matt Wong. So all the papers are back there if that's something you're interested in. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, and I think just if you want to hear more about our school,
that's in the back too.
Yeah, I've got pamphlets. It's my student Dongwon during my math lesson. You know, he's like really excited about math. So I brought the ones with my students on the cover. But it just talks about, just some more information. And if you know someone who might be interested in serving, it's not only teachers that are serving at the school. It's people who are in IT. They keep our networks running. They help me get into Google Classroom when our network is down. Yeah, we need a new business administrator, so somebody that's CPA certified. We have school nurses. Just lots, anybody can kind of be involved, but it's just some more information about our school that you could pass on. We also take student teachers or people that are retired that just want to come and serve for a few months, but short-term options are always there.
So we just want to say thank you for being a part of our lives and for sending us out as a church, as missionaries. Yeah.
You guys done?
Yep.
All right, okay.
Well,
You're not done because...
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. We're gonna we do support them as a church, but also if you want to support them individually, that would be amazing. I'm gonna post, do my little pin thing on a couple of walls around the church so that you guys can have. They'll be up next week. And I can think of no better people to support these missionary kids, because both of you guys are PKs, right? Pastor kids.
Sort of.
Yes.
My dad's not technically a pastor.
Yeah. Ministry kids. So, and by supporting this beautiful family, you guys are also supporting all of those missionaries who are coming to the Philippines, who in turn are going all throughout the world. So this is a huge need, and we had the opportunity to partner with these guys. So with that, let me pray for them, and just join me in this time of prayer. So. Father God, we thank you so much for Dennis and Evangeline, Father. God, just glory to your name, God. We praise you. We love you. Thank you for raising them, Father, for just preparing them for this mission that you have sent them on, Father. Thank you for your calling to them to go to the Philippines and to serve these children, God. We pray that you bless the school, bless the children, bless their pastor and ministry parents, God. May you help Dennis and Evangeline raise the rest of the support that they need, God, to go out to the mission field, God. Thank you for your kingdom come, and for our brother and sister here, God, that you have called, God. May we just continue to bless them as your church, and we do this all in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, God.
Thank you.
Thank you.